Harry got 2 PhDs simultaneously. I've got one, but it was a drag. Harry's done twice and done lots of other things. So if you would, and the subject here is exponential entrepreneurialism. And I think the last thing I would say here is, I don't think that we'll fail because of technology, but we may fail because we didn't think big enough or smartly enough about lots of different things. And Harry's made a point of doing that with his incredible career so far. So would you welcome, please, Harry Kloor.
So, of course, as a troublemaker, I've changed the title of my talk. I'm here primarily to talk about XPRIZE and how we've used XPRIZE to drive innovation. And I disagree with a lot of the gloom that I've heard here, because I come from an environment of where we believe in a world of abundance. And that we think that while there are a lot of challenges and there are a lot of problems in the world, I think that humanity can solve them. And one of the goals of XPRIZE is to do just that. So if you're not familiar with XPRIZE, I thought I'd just start my talk with giving you some of the principles that we have for XPRIZE. So XPRIZEs result in innovation that make a long-lasting impact. That's key. Now, you can use existing technologies, or you can innovate technologies. We actually don't define how you win a prize, and a lot of innovation, I think, can come about by just combining technologies that exist today. XPRIZes exist to legitimize a field of interest, making it possible for teams to attract support for their efforts. So a lot of times we design a prize so that we can bring a lot of people out there who have the capability but not the funding, and our prize can lead sponsors and investors to support teams around the world. XPRIZE generates popular interest through the entire life cycle of the prize. And in fact, after the prize, we end up creating new industries. XPRIZE competitions incorporate elements of both technology innovation and successful real-world deployment. An innovation that is too costly or too inconvenient to deploy will not win our prizes. We specifically want the prize to drive change and innovation and literally create the solutions to the problems we're hearing about today. XPRIZE competitions engage multidisciplinary innovators who would otherwise be unlikely to tackle the problem that the prize is designed to address. Lastly, XPRIZE competitions promote collaboration in the quest to find a solution. Now, our first XPRIZE, I usually like to walk around, I feel glued here. Our first XPRIZE was actually inspired by Lindbergh. How many people here know that Lindbergh flew across the ocean to win a prize? Very good. So Lindbergh was considered the least likely person to win the Ortega Prize, which was a $25,000 prize to fly from New York to Paris. In fact, many of the newspapers the day before he flew begged him not to fly because they figured he would set back the age of flight by a decade. The truth is that after he won the prize, flight increased 10,000-fold in a decade. He established that the everyday man could do it, and so the entire flight industry was born in terms of really bringing it to the public through that prize. That inspired us to create the Anasari XPRIZE. Now, our first XPRIZE was a $10 million purse. It was private. Each team was privately funded. You could not be a government team. It had to have a 3-person crew. What we meant by that was it had to have one living person in the equivalent weight of 2 other people, because we, again, wanted to drive an industry. It had to go to at least 100 kilometers. And the reason for that's above the edge of where space begins. And you had to do 2 flights within 2 weeks, and you had to use 90% of the same dry mass. And there were a host of teams competing for this prize. In fact, we had 26 finalist teams that came together from 7 countries. and they spent over $100 million in an effort to win this prize, even though it was only a $10 million prize. And Scale Composites, by the way, spent $27 million to win the $10 million prize. Boeing bragged that, hey, we could have done it for $2.5 billion. So Burt Rutan is quite a genius. He's designed more aircraft than actually anybody else in the world. This is the winning ship. The winning flight, the second flight, which is actually the third flight of the ship, took place on October 4th. It was a scary flight, actually, because they had done a Spaceship Zero launch, because this was funded by Paul Allen, and then they had to fly 2 flights to win our prize. And in the second flight, which was flight 1 of the XPRIZE, the ship started to spin. And they came dangerously close to aborting. But the pilot finally pulled it out of that spin and made it up. But the spinning taught us that, hey, that actually had a stabilizing effect. And so if there was a little spin, it was actually not such a bad thing. So the actual flight took place in the morning. They left out the fact that I was in the founding team for XPRIZE. I was the chief scientist, and so I attended all these flights. And it was quite a journey to have started out, and actually you end these rockets. The ship took off. It landed exactly where it took off, and you were able to go up and actually get inside the ship after it had just flown into outer space. What's cool is that the ship now resides at the Smithsonian, right next to the Spirit of St. Louis, which was the inspiration for us to do the XPRIZE to begin with. That original XPRIZE, the Honorary XPRIZE, led us to create the XPRIZE Foundation. The XPRIZE Foundation does prizes across a range of areas, from life sciences, exploration, prizes, energy and environment, and learning. Our next prize was the Google Lunar XPRIZE, and all I'll say about that is it's a series of prizes. The teams are getting close to winning it, and there's a great documentary series by Bad Robot that J.J. Abrams' team has put together that is available for anybody to see on the XPRIZE website. In terms of what we do, we've given over $34 million in prizes since we started, and we currently have $82 million in prizes that are active. And every year we develop more prizes. One of our prizes is the Tricorder XPRIZE, which is to bring more uniformity of healthcare around the world. And in essence, this is a device that can take a simple blood test and some other tests and have an AI give you the diagnosis ability of about 100 doctors. Because the prize initially had a deadline of last year, we actually extended the prize by the benefit of Qualcomm allowed us to do that, and we're hoping to have a winner soon. This prize, I think, is very exciting. Had the lights dimmed down, so I can just play you a little video on the Global Learning XPRIZE.
So we asked kids from all over the world what they want to be when they grow up.
When I grow up, I want to be a doctor. When I grow up, I want to be a professor. Scientist. Designer. I want to help people. Teacher. Actress. Engineer. Basketball player.
Turns out, kids dream big no matter where they're from. Unfortunately, where they're from makes a big difference in whether or not they'll ever realize those big dreams. You see, 250 million children around the world cannot read, write, or do basic arithmetic. Many live in developing countries without regular access to schools or teachers. And it would take 1.5 million more teachers to bring these children up to a standard level of proficiency. It's clear that the traditional model of education is no longer scalable or sustainable. We simply can't build enough schools or train enough teachers to meet the need. But what if technology could help? The $15 million Global Learning XPRIZE is challenging teams from around the world to develop tablet-based software solutions that will bring children who have little to no access to quality education to a higher level of performance in reading, writing, and arithmetic within 18 months.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M,
The
N, O,
winning
P.
team will create an independent learning environment for each child, empowering them to take control of their own learning and ultimately, their future. How many doctors, pilots, scientists, entrepreneurs, and architects are out there just waiting to make their mark? So be part of empowering young minds everywhere. Join the Global Learning XPRIZE mission. Donate, form a team, or follow the competition online. The Global Learning XPRIZE, empowering young minds everywhere.
So I'm going to skip over to this prize. The whole reason I'm here is thanks to Chip, and I want to thank Sally again for having me here. We announced last year a $20 million Carbon XPRIZE, and this is the best way to explain
We
it.
are living in an age of innovation, an unprecedented era of technological progress and prosperity, driven by energy. However, most of this energy still comes from fossil fuels, like coal, oil, and natural gas, which account for a majority of global CO2 emissions and are a leading contributor to climate change. It's time for a disruption. What if we could incentivize innovators to help address climate change by turning CO2 emissions into something we can use? The $20 million NRG COSIA Carbon XPRIZE is a global competition to develop breakthrough technologies that will convert CO2 emissions from power plants and industrial facilities into valuable products, like building materials, low-emission fuels, and other items that we use every day. At XPRIZE, we incentivize the brightest minds from around the world to create the solutions to the world's greatest challenges. Join our mission, form a team, or follow the competition online, and help us build a bridge to a cleaner energy future. The $20 million Carbon XPRIZE. Reimagine CO2. Learn more at carbon.xprize.org.
So we're running out of time because we're short here. I want to let you know that we have a July 15th deadline, so you can still create a team and enter this. And by the way, there'll be there's three tracks, and so the final prize is a $7.5 million to 3 different teams, and there's a $2.5 million prize that's an intermediary step that many teams can get a piece of that. So lastly, just because, again, I agree with several of the speakers that the ocean is an extremely important part of our ecosystem, we have an ocean mapping XPRIZE.
We humans are natural explorers. We can't help ourselves. Whether it's new worlds across treacherous landscapes or planets and galaxies beyond our imagination, the unknown calls to us, and we are driven to discover what's out there. But in all of our centuries of exploring, we've barely scratched the surface of one of the most fascinating places in the universe, our own ocean. It covers 2/3 of our planet, yet since the dawn of time, we've only explored 5% of it. Crushing pressures, extreme temperatures, and all-consuming darkness make exploration nearly impossible. The ocean remains the greatest mystery on Earth. What's going on down there? What discoveries await us? What new and fascinating forms of life will we find? The $7 million Shell Ocean Discovery XPRIZE is a global competition challenging teams to push the boundaries of existing ocean technologies and create safer, faster, and affordable ways of exploring the deep sea. This includes a $1 million bonus funded by NOAA for breakthroughs in chemical and biological sensors. By harnessing the power of autonomous underwater robotics, teams will illuminate the deep with high-resolution mapping and advanced imaging systems on a scale never seen before. The answers to some of humanity's oldest questions, or the cures to our most deadly diseases, could be waiting to be discovered. Imagine a future in which our ocean is healthy, valued, and understood. Be part of the discovery. Form a team or follow the competition online. The Shell Ocean Discovery XPRIZE. Getting to the bottom of our ocean. Find out more at oceandiscovery.xprize.org.
So I should note that this is our second ocean prize. We did an ocean cleanup prize which was a small prize. It was $500,000, I think, to better clean up oil spills. We had multiple teams do more than a 300% improvement. No improvements had been done for like 80 years. And in a 6 months period, we even had one team that was just some people at a tattoo parlor come up with a way that was over 300% improvement. So the point is you can drive change, just don't wait for industry to do it. Go out and do it yourself. Lastly, we have an IBM Watson Prize, which we announced in February, and new prizes are being developed. I've come back to XPRIZE to develop a NENA Avatar XPRIZE, and so I'm actually gathering a worldwide team as these will be voted on at the end of September. So if anybody would like to be part of that, come and approach me. The whole concept of an Avatar XPRIZE is an Uber type of avatar, so that you can leave your meat suit at home, teleport your consciousness, and while we don't tell you exactly what tech, one possibility that I envision is imagine a robotic body that you can enter and using haptics and AR and VR. And you can use that for anything. You could play tennis, you can be a disaster relief worker, you can be a builder anywhere in the world, and come and immigrate from 8 to 5 to work and be back home in time for dinner and see your kids. The point of it is the ability to move your consciousness around the globe, and we see this as a prize that's winnable in 5 to 10 years and would have a massive impact on everything from immigration to carbon, et cetera. With that, I will say, go get lunch.